Good evening, everybody. My name is Kelsey Doom. I am the President and CEO at the Brookings Area Chamber of Commerce, and we are excited to bring you these fine gentlemen this evening for our first of three virtual forums for our legislation. So District 4 is this evening. We have the County Commissioners coming up next Tuesday at 5:30, and then the 22nd we'll have the District 7 House candidates coming to join us for the same virtual format. So register. We will also put the recordings out afterwards. I also urge you to use the Q&A tool to ask questions live of our legislators and candidates here. So without further ado, I am pleased to introduce Mr. Don Norton, who is going to be our moderator. He is the CEO of the South Dakota Ag and Rural Leadership Program. So Don, I'm gonna get off the screen and I'll let you take it away.
Thank you very much, Kelsey, and thank you to our representatives and candidates who are here tonight. This is a great opportunity for everybody to kind of get to know each other, because that's kind of what informed voters want to know. They want to know who they're voting for, and these forums are a great opportunity for that. We're going to ask some questions. We're going to go back and forth between the House candidates and the Senate candidates. And if you have questions, please be sure, as Kelsey said, be sure to type them in. The District 4 House of Representative candidates with us this evening: Fred Deutsch, Republican incumbent; John Mills, Republican incumbent. And we learned late this afternoon that Becky Holquist, the Democratic candidate from District 4, had a sudden family emergency come up and could not be with us. We wish her and her family well. District 4 Senate candidates joining us this evening: John Wick, Republican incumbent, and Darrell Root, Libertarian candidate for the Senate from District 4. Welcome to our candidates, and thank you all for tuning in. We're going to demonstrate to America that civil discourse is alive and well here in South Dakota. We're all going to take our turns, and we're all going to stay within our time limits, and we're all going to get our points across. So it's going to be a really wonderful, wonderful evening. So let's start with some introductions, and I'd like to start with our Senate candidates. If you could take 1 to 2 minutes, tell us about your career, what you do in the line of work when you're not involved in legislative activities, and why you would like to be in public office or continue in public office. Let's start with our Senate candidates and incumbent John Wick. John?
Well, thank you very much, Don, and thank you to the Brookings Chamber for putting this together, and Kelsey's doing a great job learning how to navigate in the new world here. My name is John Wick. I live in Big Stone City, South Dakota. I am your current District 4 Senator. I represent Grant, Dual, rural Coddington, and rural Brookings counties here in Northeast South Dakota. When I'm not in the legislature, I'm a parts manager for our family's truck and auto repair business, and also operate a tow truck. And we've been in business here in Big Stone since 1976. So that's a little bit about me. I'm married. I have 2 children, one in high school, one in middle school, 2 boys. And I've been serving in the legislature since I was elected to the House in 2014. And then elected to the Senate in 2016, again in 2018, and Lord willing, again in 2020. So with that, I've been serving as the chairman of the Senate Appropriations Committee, and we've been a little bit busy lately working on the small business relief grant package and the healthcare package and the startup and nonprofits. And we managed to get all of that moved through during our special session just last week, and we've seen the applications out, and hopefully we can talk a little bit about that more later and get some people some help. But with that, I've already been talking about 1.5 minutes, so I'll turn that back over to you, Don, and allow introductions. Thank you.
You must also have a stopwatch going. That's great. Darrell Root is the Libertarian candidate for Senate. Darrell, please introduce yourself and tell us what you do when you're not running for office, and why you would like to serve.
Well, I'm Darrell Root, Libertarian candidate. I'm from Clear Lake, South Dakota. I've lived here now for about 6 years. My regular full-time job is in the flooring industry. I've been self-employed in that, doing mostly subcontracting in areas around Watertown. And I also have my own business, Camp Ridger Seasonings. And did I just go off the air? I lost video. I have two children. I have 6 grandchildren. They live back in Pennsylvania, where I'm originally from. I'm running because I think government's a little bit too big, and I think that involved in a little bit too much. And I would like to limit the size of government. And I'm going to keep my answer short and direct and leave it at that. Go ahead, Don.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much, Daryl. Now let's turn to our House candidates to have them introduce themselves, starting with Fred Deutsch. Fred, this is going to be an exercise in muting and unmuting ourselves this evening.
Thank you, Don. Can you hear me?
Now we're good.
Thank you. Thanks to Brookings Chamber of Commerce for hosting us. I wish we could all be together in person, but maybe this is the second best thing. So I appreciate the opportunity to share. I'm a Watertown chiropractor, have been since 1983. I've been in practice with my wife, and frankly, we just both retired. So not too long ago, we are learning to live a new way of life. We raised 4 daughters, and we have 6 grandchildren so far. I've been involved over the years in a lot of different ways in the community. I've spent 9 years on the Watertown School Board, including school board president. I've been on the United Way Board, Right to Life Board, and a variety of other positions, particularly dealing with children and helping children. I've been in the legislature for 4 years. If I am privileged enough to be sent back to the legislature by the constituents that we have in South Dakota in our district, it would of course be for an additional term. Right now I serve on education and health. Those are 2 of my passions, and I would enjoy the opportunity to go back and help once again. I'm a public servant. That's why I enjoy serving. And with that, I'll turn it back over to you, Don.
Thank you very much. And now let's turn to John Mills, another incumbent House candidate. John?
Good evening, and thank you to the Chamber and to Don for hosting this tonight. Rather odd to be doing it via computer, but it does work in these times. In terms of who I am, I'm a South Dakota native, born in Brookings, spent most of my life here. I've been married for 40 years now, and had to cancel my 40-year anniversary trip that I had planned with my wife because of the COVID pandemic. So we enjoyed that from our farmhouse. And like everybody's, 2020 has changed. I've made my living in the construction business and in real estate development in eastern South Dakota, a lot of that in the Brookings area. I live on a farm near Volga. My wife and I have 2 grown children and 6, I always have to count, but we have 6 grandchildren now. We've been blessed, and we're grateful that they all live in the area. In terms of, why I stepped forward to serve, I really felt a desire to serve. Hadn't had that opportunity until later on in my career when I finally had some time and could devote the energy and the time that it requires. So in 2016, I ran and was elected the first time and was reelected in 2018. I currently serve on the Taxation Committee in the House, and I chair the Transportation Committee. And I'm looking forward to getting sent back to Pierce so that I can build on the knowledge and the experience that I've gained. And I'm watching the stopwatch, and I'm about out of my 2 minutes. So thank you.
Very good, candidates. Thank you very much for staying on time here. We're going to move into some questions now, and let's take 2 to 3 minutes to answer each one of these questions. I'll start with the Senate candidates. Kind of 2 parts to this question. What is your short-term and maybe long-term vision for economic development in our district? And the second part of the question is, how will your service in the legislature help us realize that vision? Let's start with Mr. Wick.
Well, thank you very much, Don. Part of that question I think we can answer just by watching the screens. I don't know if you've been paying close attention, but you saw that even though all of us have high-speed internet, there are screens freezing and we're getting warnings of low bandwidth. One of the great things that happened at South Dakota State University there in Brookings recently was precision ag. And when you talk about economic development and precision ag and the evolution of how we are getting things done, and you see how many people have to do remote business, remote learning, bandwidth is going to be in our future. And we're going to need expanded bandwidth opportunities for economic development. If you're looking long-term, it really should be short-term, but long-term, I think we need to continue. Governor Noem has done a great job emphasizing our need for more bandwidth in our rural areas. And as a rural district like ours, if we want to compete with the Brookings of the world or the Watertowns of the world out here in Big Stone and Clear Lake and Millbank, the areas around those towns need to be built up with a stronger fiber infrastructure. And that's one of the things the governor has emphasized, and we've appropriated money to get started down that path. It's something that we talked about with COVID funding, but we didn't have time to get that done and wrapped up by December 30th when the funding has to be appropriated and out the door. So I think one of the things we're really going to have to talk about is bandwidth. And another thing for agriculture especially, we learned through COVID, we've got to talk about meat processing and how that gets done. Right now, most of our beef and especially our pork is done in these giant kill houses in Sioux City and Sioux Falls. And your local meat supplies, I mean, when you are in South Dakota and during a pandemic, you walk in and see there isn't even any hamburger on the shelf in your grocery store. That's a problem, and that's something we need to work towards. And we met extensively on that, talking about some of the COVID funding, and I think it's something we're going to definitely be bringing up. And I'd really like to get back to the legislature to work on getting something put forward to help expand local meat processing so we can keep our shelves stocked should an event like this happen again. So those are just a couple of the things I've been working on and I'd like to continue working on in Pierre.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wick. And now to Mr. Root, your long and short-term vision for economic development in the district and how your service will help us realize that.
I can agree with John on the bandwidth issue. Obviously, the more rural the area, the less likely you are to have high-speed internet and the necessary broadband capabilities to keep up with the Brookings and the Watertowns that he mentioned. Overall, economically, I'd like to keep government as out of the equation as much as possible and let things go to the free market, supply and demand. In areas where there's a lot of supply, you're going to get companies that are willing to meet that demand because there's money to be made. In more rural areas outside of broadband, I think that's just, I'm not sure how I want to phrase it, not the penalty of living in rural areas, but it's kind of a pro-con of living in a rural area. You get a lot more peace and freedom in a rural area as opposed to a city. One thing with the meats, I'd like to see farmers be able to sell meat directly to whoever they want to, which I don't think is allowed right now. So that would be another option to keep meats on, in the marketplace, on the shelves. And I guess that's it for now.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much. Now I want to turn to our House candidates with that same question. We're two parts, the short-term and long-term vision for economic development in the district and how your service is going to help the communities realize this. Let's start with Mr. Deutsch.
Got it.
Got it.
You can hear me, right?
Yes, we can now, sir.
Thank you. District 4 is a very large district. We consist of 4 counties, all the way up from Big Stone, all the way down to southern Brookings County, and extending out into Huntington, of course. We're a very rural district. We have 30 communities and 9 school districts. And down at the southern end, in Brookings, we have SDSU. And of course, SDSU is centered in District 7, but some of it extends out into District 4. And I consider SDSU a jewel. And I think any plan that we talk about with economic development needs to look at the relationship that SDSU in Brookings has with Lake Area Tech in Watertown, with the 9 school districts that we have in our district. You know, there's much that can be done to promote collaboration among the institutions. And I look forward every year attending sessions at SDSU to discuss what's going on and how we can help. And I think that's a huge component of District 4 and being a good servant. I would piggyback on Senator Wick's comments about bandwidth. Obviously, that's important. And Mr. Root's comments, hugely important for a rural area. Anything that we can do to promote agriculture in our highly agricultural district is important. I would just say that serving on education, I see a lot of the bills that come in from throughout the state, and as an education advocate, I can help promote that, which is obviously very important for our district. So with that, I'll turn it back to you, Don, and thank you.
Very good. We're talking about the short-term and long-term economic development in the district and how our candidates see their vision fitting into that. So next is Mr. Mills. Give us 2 to 3 minutes on your thoughts on the vision for the future here.
Thank you, Don. I think there's been an awful lot of good comments already. Both the past and the future in District 4, and really for all of South Dakota, revolve around agriculture. And I too am enthused about having SDSU in the middle of our district, if you will, and the energy that expands off of that. I was very happy to be actively in support of the precision ag emphasis that's underway at SDSU, and what that can mean. I really think has a potential to be transformational, not only for our area, but for our nation and perhaps even the world. Because I think many of the world's problems can be solved if we get back to our roots, so to speak, the foundation of that agriculture provides. We see some recent examples of that right in Volga. There's a new business coming to Volga out of Canada, going to take over some space, the old cheese plant in Volga that's been vacant for some time. And that's really a result of the connection with SDSU and also with South Dakota soybean processors and Prairie Aquatech and some of the spinoffs that we're starting to see. And so I think the future really is in agriculture and in tying that to the technology that's been talked about so that agriculture is equipped to move forward and help solve the world's problems. So I see that as both the short-term and the long-term solution for us. Thank you.
Very good. Candidates, thank you very much. And again, I appreciate your staying within our time constraints. We're going to move on to our second question, and we're going to begin with the House candidates this time. So if we want to move forward economically, sometimes laws get in the way. Sometimes laws help. What law would you overturn or change to help our district advance economically? What's got to change in Pierre? What can the legislature do to help us out? And Mr. Mills, you're the first one up on this question. I tried to buy you a little time on that, but it's a pretty quick turnaround, isn't it?
Yeah, not very much in terms of time that you bought me, and a question I've not been asked before, and so nothing really is jumping top of mind, and so I'm not sure how to answer that. I think, I guess I'm just going to kind of say I don't know, and sometimes I think that's an okay answer.
A couple of years ago, we were talking about hemp, for example, and that was a big issue. And some people wanted it, some people didn't want it. Some people could have made jobs out of it, those types of things. But we couldn't move the legislation forward. That type of issue might be what we'd consider. I'll throw this over to Mr. Deutsch right
now. That's a really good question. And I've not been asked it either, so it's thoughtful. Let me answer it in a couple ways. Number one is I can't think of anything in specific, but I think a really good legislator listens closely to his or her constituents. And if someone has a suggestion, they often are the basis for the bills that we bring. And they certainly are the basis for many of the bills that I brought. So I would just, whoever thought of that great question, if you can think of something that we should do to help particularly District 4, I'd like to hear from you.
Of course, the hard part is we're asking the incumbents what you would have done differently, right? What you would have moved forward that you couldn't move forward.
Yeah, I don't know. You know, there's always a battle in peer with every bill. There's pros and cons with everyone. But as I understand the question, it's what would you do going forward? What changes would you make? And I don't know. It's on the ballot this year is an issue that doesn't come to us, but it's the marijuana issue, and that's very controversial. And I don't support the measures. I think we're going to run into a lot of trouble as a state in a lot of different ways if those pass. And I would, frankly, do what I could or do what I can as a legislator to see them fail. And I'll end it at that.
Okay, that's fair. We're going to move to the Senate candidates. And in this case, I'm going to start with Mr. Root. What policy is needed? What policy needs to go a different direction to help District 4?
Thank you for asking. I already mentioned one about farmers being able to sell meats directly to consumers instead of having to go through other middlemen processes. But let's get to that marijuana issue. All three of these men have denied us marijuana, whether medicinal or recreational, the whole way through. I know several people with medical conditions who go out of state for medicinal marijuana because it benefits them. One has a child with Dravet syndrome, which causes a lot of seizures. The only way he can get relief is to go out of state. Let's talk about hemp. We can sell hemp products in this state, but we're not allowed to grow it because supposedly we can't tell the difference between hemp and marijuana. Well, Oregon's been doing it for years, and there's no reason why we can't do it also. Let's take a lesson from some other states. So I feel real strongly on these issues. I could preach forever on this one, but I'm just going to let it go at that. I think, it's on the ballot now. Voters are finally going to have a say in this. I'm going to go out on a limb and predict that medicinal passes. I kind of have my doubts about the recreational part, and I'm okay with that. But, let's see what the voters do. Back to you, Don.
Very good. Thank you. Well, Mr. Wick, what would we do differently? What can we change? What policies can we remove or add that are really going to help our district?
Well, just one correction. We did legalize the agricultural growing of hemp last year in the 2020 session. It ended up being a compromise and part of a whole long set of negotiations. I still don't see it as the boon that a lot of people are talking about, but I did end up voting for it. So, hemp is legal in South Dakota. We just had to set it up so that our law enforcement was comfortable with it. It's a really good way to hide high THC marijuana inside of transportation, and that's why it's really tough to figure out which one's which. And we finally came up with a plan that our law enforcement was comfortable with this last year, and we did move the issue forward. A few of the other things I'd like to see, I'd really like to see as far as some laws to overturn. One of them, actually, the governor was able to suspend because of emergencies in the COVID world, and that was Senate Bill 113. And it hasn't received a whole lot of press, but Senate Bill 113 was about youth driver's licenses. And for those of you who grow up in a farming area, that's really important. And some of the things that came in with Senate Bill 113 would prevent drivers up until age 18 in some circumstances. And that just doesn't work in our rural areas. So the governor I voted against this. I fought against this, but evidently not hard enough. It passed through the legislature, but that's one of the things we're going to have to revisit because the governor did suspend the implementation of that bill with the COVID emergency, and that will drop it back in our lap for it kicking back in after December 30th, and we're going to have to look at that. One of the other laws I've been working on really quickly is to keep wind energy revenue, at least part of that, in each local school district. It keeps the promises alive of the people who started the wind energy industry and allows continued development for those who want it. So that's just a couple of the things I'd like to work towards.
Very good. Thank you very much. At the beginning, I think it was the beginning of the program, or maybe even before the program, Kelsey from the chamber talked about really the dire condition of some of our retailers. We have some COVID funds available. I guess my question here, and we're going to start with the senator and Senate candidates here. Are we doing enough? Are we going to be able to save our businesses? We're not over this yet. How do we get to the other side and still have an economy? I'm going to start with John Wick again. I know it's, again, a quick turnaround since you just answered the last question, but how are we going to fix this?
Well, we did our best to start fixing this. Now, if you read about the lost retail in South Dakota, and I'd better put my timer on now before I get going down this road, because I've been hosting hour-long seminars on this on the internet and talking about it. So let me just say that we just put the largest share of the $1.25 billion, the largest single piece of that is small business relief, $400 million. It was just released when we had our special session October 5th, everything put together, and the application started on Tuesday. Is $400 million enough? No. I'll tell you that right now. I'll just be as blunt as I can be about it, because when you read articles about the lost revenue, we're anywhere between $1 and $2 billion because of COVID in South Dakota. And we were affected the least of all of our neighboring states, probably affected the least of any state in the nation, because we were able to stay open and do what we thought was right for our own business and our own health and safety. But as you take a look at what damages have been done to small business, the $400 million might help keep some doors open, and we're certainly going to do that. We've lost some businesses already, and that is absolutely horrible. But that is a part of the pandemic. Is nobody can plan for that, and it's going to be a hurdle that a lot of people have got to get through. But we've got $400 million going out for small businesses. The applications are open, and you can get to the link to that at covid.sd.gov. And there's call centers. My painting tipped over here. No problem. Sorry about that. And there's training videos. There's all sorts of things you can do at that website, covid.sd.gov. There's links to a call center with numbers there. And it's a start. We've got $40 million for nonprofits that were harmed by this, because when your business isn't open, you don't donate to your nonprofits. So we've got $40 million in nonprofits, $400 million for small business, $10 million for startup businesses. We've got $115 million going out the door for healthcare, and we've got another $15 million for acute care hospitals, $5 million for CVBs and that kind of thing. We're trying, we're starting, we're moving in that direction because small business is the key to South Dakota's economy. And are we doing everything we can? I think so. I wish we could do more, but I think because we stayed open and we're doing what we can with the assistance we have, I think we're going to be in a better position than our neighboring states to keep our businesses up and running. Thanks, Don.
Thank you. Mr. Root, what can we do to help keep our small businesses open as we navigate the remainder of COVID?
One way to do it is get the government out of it. You know, when you're not allowed to have large social gatherings, whether they're in restaurants, sporting events, you know, you name it, you know, chili cook-offs, which affected my business. As I said earlier, I'm trying to get a spice business going. My intention was to go to chili cook-offs, barbecue cook-offs, and things of that nature, you know, but they were all called off because of what COVID was. I think businesses should be allowed to stay open. I trust business owners to make intellectual choices and whether they want to keep things open, keep things closed, how many people they should have in their restaurants. I don't think government should be mandating that, you know. And then individuals, on the other hand, can choose whether they want to frequent those businesses. If you don't want to be in a restaurant that's full of diners because you're afraid of catching COVID, they can make the choice not to go. People who don't fear that and still want to go should be allowed to. And that's just keeping government out of it and letting individual choice rule. Go ahead, Don.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's go to our House candidates, and who we're going to start with here. We're going to start with Mr. Mills.
Thank you, Don. I appreciate that. I guess I'd start by saying that the reason we had a special session a week ago, a little over a week ago, was that legislators recognized that small businesses were hurting. And there was a lot of pressure put on the governor to call that special session so that we could provide some input to her as to what was going on out in the community and all across the state. And so I was grateful that she did allow us to do that. I was grateful for the work of our appropriators like Senator Wick and all the testimony and things that they took, and really thankful that we were able to come out with a program that includes some grants. In fact, I've been spending a fair amount of time this week contacting individuals and organizations that I know should be reaching out to get the help. And it's been kind of surprising that a fair number of them were not even aware. So I think as much as we can, we need to do to make businesses and nonprofits and people aware that there are grants out there, but it's a short window. And so I would echo what Senator Wick said and encourage people to go to SD or covidsd.gov and start the application process. Even if they don't qualify or get through for this round, they should fill out the application because the parameters may change if there's leftover resources. So I want to encourage people to do that. I also think that, you know, an important thing for us to help our businesses survive is to allow for flexibility. We've got to resist mandates and lockdowns. I think that's been extremely evident to me. And I see different communities dealing with it in different ways. And not enough emphasis or recognition is put on the economic harm that's being done when we lock down and create mandates. And so I think we need to resist that and let people make their own decisions. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Deutsch, how are we going to get out of this economic issue we're in right now with COVID?
Well, let me say, first of all, that I to live in a state that has a governor that provides us the opportunities to make these choices, and that she provides us the opportunities to put liberties and freedom of choice that other states don't. Now, as far as how to get out of the economic challenges, you know, I don't want to repeat that what's already been stated, but you know, I think what each of us can do individually is support our local businesses. Everybody has a choice where they can shop, and nowadays it's huge to go online. Well, duh. Don't you think it's important, especially now, to shop local? You know, let's say you live near Senator Wick up in Big Stone. Well, you can go across state lines to Ortonville to shop. Some people do. Don't you think it's important to keep your dollars here in South Dakota? I do. And I think it's just hugely important to support our local businesses. That's what I would do. And that's what I encourage everybody in our district to do. Shop local.
Okay. Thank you very much. I want to encourage our live viewers at this time. And of course, this is being recorded and will probably be watched by many others in the future. But people who are right now live with us can fill in a question on the question and answer chat area. So we'll appreciate those if they come in. As we all know, there are confirmation hearings going on in the Supreme Court, and one of the issues that could be in the balance is Roe v. Wade and the abortion issue. Abortion law could be returned to the states. Will you vote to maintain, strengthen, or lessen South Dakota's abortion laws if they come back to the state level? Let's start with Mr. Wick on the Senate candidates.
Thanks, Don. Absolutely, 100% pro-life. And when you start talking about choosing, there's one person in this, in the horrible decision of an abortion that doesn't get the choice, and that person doesn't get to grow up. So I'm absolutely pro-life. We have an organization here in Big Stone City called Birthright that helps mothers in this horrible, this horrible gut-wrenching decision what to do. With a lot of pressures being applied for an abortion, and Birthright and other organizations like it work to get that child into a family. And when you talk about, you know, one of the great things about the justice of the Supreme Court that's up there is she's an adoptive parent. And when situations like that come up, I think we need more parents and foster parents to step up and do their job, or to take on the responsibility of raising some of these children. And I'm absolutely pro-life, and I'm absolutely trying to make sure that we have opportunities available to make sure that mothers in tough decisions have avenues to help them make better choices for the health of their children.
Thank you. Mr. Root. Where would you vote on if abortion laws come back to the state to determine?
I got two opinions on this one. One is personal. I'm 100% pro-life, except with the exception of a mother's life when that's in danger. However, that doesn't quite match my political view. Politically, I believe in what's known as the USDDA, United States Definition of Death Act. That defines death as the irreversible functioning of the brain and heart. So in my opinion, when either one of those occurs, a heartbeat, you know, brain functioning, that to me is life, and it's a life that needs protected. That can usually be detected at about 12 weeks without any, it can be detected at about 12 weeks. I can't think of the term I was looking for there. I would support abortion up to about the 12-week viewpoint. I do agree with Senator Wick on fosterhood. Since the age of 2, I got to stay with one family the entire time that I was raised. Parents did a great job. At least I'd like to think they did. You know, and I think we do need to make foster care a little more easier to obtain so that women do have options. Back to you, Don.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's go to our House candidates, starting with Mr. Deutsch. If abortion law is returned back to the state, would you vote to maintain, strengthen, or reduce the opportunity for abortion in South Dakota?
Thank you, Don. You know, it's been my great pleasure to serve as president of South Dakota Right to Life Board for the last 6 years. And I have worked tirelessly to support laws that would put an end to this, as well as bring legislation forward that could potentially go to the U.S. Supreme Court to overturn Roe. If Roe is overturned, I would support any law that would make it more difficult to have an abortion, because abortion is killing children, unborn children. And I don't believe any unborn baby has done anything in any circumstance to warrant the death penalty. And I know there are difficult cases that the opponents will always bring up. What about rape? What about incest? Well, what did the unborn baby do, even in a rape case, to deserve the death penalty? Currently, we have a trigger law in South Dakota that says, essentially, if Roe is overturned and the decision goes back to the states, automatically abortion is illegal in South Dakota. I would like to see that trigger law enforced, and I would like to see it encouraged. I would also like to see foster care and adoptions strengthened. You know, just this last week, I was at the South Dakota Right to Life annual convention, and we heard from people that run adoption agencies, and some of their greatest challenges are finding babies. There's just not enough babies because women abort them. And so there are many, many more families. I think I heard a statistic that for every baby that's aborted, there's 6 families that want to adopt it in South Dakota. That just blows my mind. I want to do more to make adoptions easier, and to bring forward more babies to the families that want to love them. I just breaks my heart. So I think we can have a very loving society if we can create laws to support that process. Thank you, Don.
Thank you very much. Mr. Mills, if the decision for abortion comes back to the state, where do you stand on that?
Well, I have a 100% voting record with South Dakota Right to Life. I'm proud of that. I think we have a really strong contingency between Representative Deutsch and Senator Wick, and we stand shoulder to shoulder on that issue. I also have a real heart for the women that get in situations that are tough. And so my wife and I, we support option 1 in Brookings that actively reaches out to women that have an unplanned pregnancy and tries to assist them. And I personally know many couples that fit in the category that Representative Deutsch just described. Some of them have remained childless throughout their life, even though they tried hard to have a child, and also considered adoption. But as he said, there aren't enough children to be adopted, and there are a lot of childless couples. So I guess I stand firmly with that all life is sacred from conception to natural death, and that's where my vote would be.
Thank you all very much for your comments on that. somebody brought this up earlier, and I want to go around the room on this because it's kind of an important issue coming up on our ballot. Amendment A legalizes marijuana for recreational use. Initiated Measure 26 makes marijuana legal for medical purposes. Where are we going to stand on this? Let's start with Representative Deutsch.
Thank you for the question. So I actually had a vote on the medical issue some years ago, came before the Health and Human Services Committee. And it's, it's a very tough issue when people bring children in that have medical conditions such as seizures that medical marijuana can help. On the other hand, we have medical doctors come forward and testify saying, there are other avenues that can provide the same benefit without the social implications. So I don't support the medical use. The recreational use, I think, leads to a whole can of worms. I went to a symposium some years ago in Portland after it was legalized there, and we heard from the police about all the challenges. And while I recognize the liberties involved with providing them, I think if we open up recreational marijuana to everybody under the sun, we're going to have a real issue with law enforcement, and I just don't have a good feel about it, and I'm not going to support it, and I'd encourage others not to support it either.
Mr. Mills.
Well, I'm opposed to both of the marijuana measures. In fact, my official cheat sheet for all of the ballot initiatives this year just has one word on it. It says no. That's how I intend to vote on all three, and I would encourage everybody to do that. As chair of Transportation Committee, I attended a transportation summit in Denver a year ago, and we were addressed by the head of one of the heads of the Highway Patrol in Denver. And he talked about the huge increase in traffic fatalities and accidents that occurred after they legalized marijuana. And how he talked about how it's also very common that when they stop an impaired driver, it's often with multiple impairments. They may have some alcohol in their blood, they may have some marijuana, they may have something else. And so it just increases the challenges. And, I would think organizations like Mothers Against Drunk Drivers would just be all over this, that we don't need any of these measures. When I read the medical marijuana one, it's kind of humorous to me, because growing up in the late 60s and 70s, if somebody had an ounce of marijuana, they had friends. And if they had 3 ounces of marijuana, which the law would allow for medical use, they were a dealer. And so I see all kinds of problems with both of these. I want to encourage everybody to vote against them. Thank you.
I wasn't even going to ask you about Amendment B, the sports wagering in Deadwood. You don't even want that?
No, sir, I don't. And I can talk briefly to that. The sports wagering in Deadwood automatically opens it up to all of the Indian casinos. We have 11 Indian casinos in South Dakota. They're close to all of us. And sports wagering, in my mind, really targets men because we're kind of competitive about our sports. And in particular, it targets young men. And by forcing them to go near to a casino in order to engage in sports betting, we're going to expose them to all other gambling, and we're just going to have more problems with gambling. We're gambling saturated in South Dakota. We need less of it, not more.
Okay, let's go to the Senate candidates on the amendments particular to marijuana, but if you want to talk about the sports book as well, that's fine. Let's start with Mr. Root.
As I said before, I support medicinal marijuana. I think doing recreational marijuana is a stupid idea, but hey, I'm all for people's freedoms. I'm going to be the only candidate here that believes you know what is best for your own life, and I'm not going to preach to you on what you can and can't do with it, whether it's gambling, whether it's marijuana. You know, you have a right for complete autonomy over your life. It doesn't mean I recommend it, but I believe you should have the freedom to do so. And the whole medical issue, I don't see how anybody, no insult to my opponents here, you know, I don't see how anybody can tell somebody what they can't have as an option for medical care. That is just wrong, and to me, that's immoral. No offense, guys. As far as the gambling issue, same thing. You know, are we going to eliminate gambling for people who are in control of it? I mean, granted, there are a few people who abuse it, they're hooked on it, you know, and it causes troubles. But the majority of people who gamble do so recreationally without any problems. I mean, I go to the Dakota Sioux Casino every once in a while, maybe a couple times a year. I throw in $20. If I win something, I win. If I don't, I don't. No big deal. I consider it a contribution to the Indian casino. Go ahead, Don.
Thank you very much. Okay, Mr. Wick, where are you on the amendment issues?
Well, thank you very much, Don. And this actually, if I had more time on your first question today on your long-term economic development, it would be to oppose Constitutional Amendment A. But let's start with IM 26. Just if you read the opposition, the number one opponent in the state of South Dakota to IM 26 is the South Dakota Medical Association. And I think that should tell you something, that medical marijuana is just not studied. And remember, the President of the United States can pick up his pen and stop all of this tomorrow. I mean, marijuana is still a Schedule I drug. Whether you agree with that or not, whether you believe that's proper or not, marijuana is still a Schedule I drug, and you can have it absolutely wiped out and eliminated tomorrow with one stroke of a pen in Washington, D.C. So I think we're building up a lot of false hopes with IM 26. And remember, it's the South Dakota Medical Association, the professionals we trust with our lives, are opposing this. And I'm going to join them in asking you to vote no for IM 26. Now, when we talk about recreational marijuana, there is your long-term economic development buzzkill. When you talk about all of the, I'm involved in truck repair, so I talk to a lot of people who own small trucking companies. Their number one problem is finding drivers. And I've had a couple of drivers, whether you legalize marijuana or not, whether you move forward with legalizing recreational marijuana, the insurance companies, if you own a large piece of machinery like a truck or a forklift or a welder or anything, the insurance companies are going to demand that you do random drug tests of your employees. And that marijuana stays in your system for a couple weeks. And if you are dehydrated or eat a bunch of fatty foods, the one day you happen to be picked for a random test, you can immediately go hot and you lose your job. And now there's another piece of machinery that doesn't have an operator. And when we're looking for economic development, we're looking for people. In the middle of a pandemic, we have less than 5% unemployment. I mean, this is a real problem in South Dakota. Adding recreational marijuana or any drug to a legal mix is just against all the things we're trying to do in economic development. And I would strongly encourage a vote no on IM 26 and Amendment A. And as far as Amendment B goes, I'm going to vote no, but I don't have strong opinions on that one.
Well, I'm glad Amendment B didn't turn into a discussion of the Viking season this year. I'm proud of all of us for not going there. I guess I just went there, didn't I? We have 5 minutes left. Gentlemen, I'm going to go around the room to the candidates, take up to 1 minute to answer the question, why should I vote for you? Let's start with our representatives. Mr. Deutsch.
Well, first of all, thank you for the chamber providing us this opportunity. Thank you, Don, for being a superb moderator. I've been to Pierre for 4 years. I have experience. I think This next session is going to be unlike any session we've ever experienced because of COVID. There are so many issues affecting so many people in so many ways that I think experience plays an important role. And I also think that having people with the values that most people have, being a mom, being a dad, being a small business owner, that's important. And I think you also want somebody that's reasonable, that's rational, that thinks through things, that is a good listener. I bring those things to the table. I'm grateful and humbled to serve, and with that, I'm going to just ask the people to please provide me the opportunity to be your voice once again for the next 2 years. Thank you.
Mr. Mills, why should I vote for you?
Thank you, Don. Well, I too want to thank the chamber, and I would second that motion. That Don Norton does an excellent job as a moderator, so thank you. You know, it's been my great privilege to serve as representative for District 4, something I never really expected, but was asked to step forward and was fortunate to be elected, and it's been a privilege. There's a lot to learn when you get there. Our government is way bigger than I ever realized. And I go to here with my business background and knowledge, and remembering all of the rules and regulations as a business person that I had to you know, live with and abide by, and all the taxes and so forth. And so I go every day thinking my number one job is to play defense against bad ideas, new taxes, to work to defend the family and things that are important to us in South Dakota. Because I have grandchildren that live here. I have children that live here. I want South Dakota to be everything it was for me growing up and better. And so I go with that in mind. I show up every day, and I do the work, even when the days are long and the pay is short. And I'm hoping that people will send me back and let me continue that work for another 2 years. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go to our Senate candidates. Mr. Wick, why should I vote for you?
Well, thanks again, Don, and great job, and thanks to the Brookings Chamber. Really quick, it's been the greatest privilege of my life to serve both in the House of Representatives and in the Senate for District 4. Learning the appropriations process, I think, has been a huge part of that. And as the COVID pandemic unfolds, and as someone who's been deeply involved in all of the relief packages and everything else, I think this experience is very valuable to the residents of District 4. And I think just having a strong rural legislator is very important, especially as the population tends to move towards the Sioux Falls and Rapid City metros. And as we look at redistricting, strong rural legislators are very important. And I really hope that we have a strong voice that continues in District 4. And thank you for your time, and thanks for the opportunity of the day.
Thank you. Mr. Root, why should I vote for you?
Like everyone else, I'd like to thank the chamber, and you too also, Don. Representative Mills said it himself, government's way bigger than he realized. What more can I say? You know, you made my point. You know, it's the government's job to restore victims and protect individual rights. It's not their job to regulate morality, regulate how you run your business, how to run your life, or anything else. I trust the people. I don't trust government. I believe people can do a much better job of dictating what is best for their life, their families, their friends or relatives than what government can. Government comes up with too many one-solution-fits-all solutions, and they don't work. Everybody is an individual, they're unique, and everybody has a different set of circumstances. And the only way we can make sure that is maintained is to get government out of our lives as much as possible and do only the basics. And I want to thank both Johns and Fred for being here, being a part of it, and it's great talking and seeing each of you guys again. Thank you very much. Please vote for me. Back to you, Don.
Well, thank you. And I want to thank you all for being here, our Senate and representative candidates from District 4. I want to thank the Brookings Chamber of Commerce for putting on this Zoom forum. And I really appreciate the people who tuned in, both live and the people who will watch the recording of this. Thank you. And I encourage you to vote on Tuesday, November 3rd.